This is my dream job. I absolutely love the work that I get to do every day, and I feel really privileged to be able to do this type of work and supporting other people to achieve their dreams. So, I wanted to start off by sharing a couple reasons why you should listen to me and why you can trust me today. So, the first reason that you should listen to me is because I personally have messed up my career in the past. So, it was about 6 years ago that I ended up in a role that was totally not a fit for me in any capacity. I actually kind of hated it. So I am someone who knows what it feels like to feel like you have failed in your career, essentially. And I also know the steps that I took to navigate myself out of that mess. I was able to turn things around and I successfully re-navigated myself into work that I loved. So my track record is going from a career that I hated. I was an analyst at a major retail corporation into a career that I loved, which was in recruiting at a Fortune 500 company. And then now I have evolved into the next phase of my career, which is being a coach. So another job that I absolutely love.
All right.
Thank you. So, second reason that you should listen to me is that I spent 4 years on recruiting teams at a Fortune 500 company. So, I personally have interviewed over 1,000 different candidates and I've reviewed even more resumes. There was a time in my career that I was responsible for looking at 200 to 300 resumes per week, which is kind of crazy. And I have been the person who's in charge of deciding whether someone gets an interview or they get a rejection email. So I know what it takes to get hired. I've been through this process, I've seen it on the back end. And then the third reason that you should listen to me today is that I just really care a lot about people. I'm fascinated by people. I'm inspired by people. I love hearing their stories and different gifts that they have to offer. One of my gifts is that I'm an exceptional listener. And I'm also someone who grew up with my dad who lived out his dream career every single day. So my dad actually does cabinetry and wood flooring, definitely not a glamorous career, but I got to grow up seeing the joy and passion that it created for him. And that was really special to me. So I truly believe that we all can do work that we enjoy. So even if you don't believe it for yourself, I am someone who believes that you can have that. And that was part of the reason that I got into coaching too, is that I saw all of these things in the recruiting world that I was like, wow, if people just knew what I know, they could get so much further along in the process. So that was part of the inspiration for moving into coaching. So now that you know a little bit about me, I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today. It's one of my all-time favorite concepts when it comes to job searching, and it's actually the cornerstone of all of my coaching programs because I truly believe that it is that powerful. So I'm going to be talking about informational interviewing. So how many of you guys are familiar with the concept of informational interviewing? Put a yes or no in the chat so we can get a sense of where everyone is at with this. I actually should pull up the chat. Here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Love it. Okay, we have one no from Anthony. You're going to learn a lot. Awesome. So a lot of you are familiar. That's perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so informational interviewing is the process of speaking with someone to learn more about their career, their company, or maybe what their industry is like too. So it's actually a pretty simple definition. And here's why you should care about it. So through my own experience and from supporting others through this process, I have discovered three massive benefits to doing informational interviews, and they're going to completely change your job search. So here are the three major benefits. The first one is that informational interviewing allows you to determine what career path is going to be the right fit for you before you actually step into the role. Benefit number two, informational interviewing can allow you to skip the application and resume submittal process. And then benefit number three, informational interviewing can allow you to really cruise through the interview process and make that so much easier for you and help you to really stand out during that process as well. So I am going to talk you through each of these benefits today, and we'll get started with the first one. Okay, so first benefit, how you can use informational interviewing to determine what career path will be the right fit for you before you actually step into the role. So, informational interviewing is an incredible way to learn in depth about a particular career. And I know we all look at the job descriptions, right? But you can only learn so much from a job description. When you actually hear a real human's experience, when they can tell you about it live, and when you hear about their job in that capacity, it gives you so much more depth, so much more dimension for you to understand what that career is actually going to be like. And so I'll tell you a personal story of mine. I want to take you back to about 6 years ago when I mentioned that I had kind of messed up my own career. I was starting what I thought would be my dream job. I had worked so hard to get into this career as an analyst. I was a planning analyst at Walmart's corporate office. It was exactly what I wanted. I thought I wanted to be a buyer at the time, and that was kind of like my first step in that direction. And so for me, it was really shocking and hurtful and honestly really embarrassing for me to realize that I was really bad at that job. I was really bad at it. And on top of that, I didn't like it. And that, kind of plays into each other. I wasn't good at it and I didn't like it. And I just didn't care about the work that we were doing. I didn't feel attached to it, which was a problem for me. And I still remember the exact moment I was standing in front of a huge auditorium full of people and I was about to give this presentation and I was holding my hands behind my back because they were just shaking and I didn't want anyone to see. And the reason that I was so terrified up there was because I was scared that someone in the audience was going to ask me to explain the financial piece of my project and I would have had literally no idea what to say. I did not understand the project that I had helped work on, right? So in that moment, I knew that something had to change for me. I knew that my career wasn't supposed to be this hard. It wasn't supposed to be this frustrating and difficult. And so I took this as an opportunity to really get to know myself and to start exploring what my options were. And so that's where the informational interviewing comes in. So I looked into being an HR generalist, I looked at product development, I looked at trends research, and I looked at recruiting. So I picked out a variety of different things that I thought I might be interested in. And I went and did informational interviews with all of these people. So I had tons of different conversations. And as I learned more about each of the roles, it started to become more and more obvious to me that recruiting was going to be the right path for me. And I knew this because the things that I was learning about what it was like to work in recruiting, those things that I learned were aligned with who I am as a person. I love meeting new people. I love hearing their stories. Like I said before, I'm a great listener. I have this freakish ability to remember people's names. It's really kind of crazy. I wanted to utilize that skill. And I loved LinkedIn. And I love the idea that there were an infinite number of people for me to connect with. I love being a connector. And so, from all of the conversations that I had, all of these informational interviews, I knew what to expect when I was going into a recruiting role. I knew that it was going to require me to use some of my biggest strengths. And I knew that it was going to include activities that I found to be fun and that brought me joy and excitement, right? So I got into the recruiting world. I absolutely loved it. And this is the same process that I follow with my clients now. So I do clarity work and job search work. And what I work on with clients is we work on getting really clear on the things that they enjoy, the things that they are good at. And then we go out and do the informational interviews to learn which path is going to be aligned with who they are as a person. So instead of trying to fit yourself into a role, you can say, okay, does this role fit me? Which is a way better perspective to take on. It feels a lot better. So I had a call with one of my clients earlier this week, and he is deep in the clarity process, and he's not even applying to jobs yet. And he's really committed to getting clear on what he wants first, which I love. And so he's going out and having these conversations and then coming back to debrief and analyze with me. And I ask him, what did you learn from this conversation that felt exciting to you? So that's a question that you can be asking yourself after these informational interviews. And my client told me this whole list of things that he was super, super excited about. And then I asked him, what were the things that you learned that made you feel hesitant about this? What were some things where it felt like your energy was being drained? And so that's another question that you can ask to see if things are aligned or not. And my client kind of struggled to come up with things that he was hesitant about. And so what we can conclude from that is that he's on the right track. He's moving in a direction that's exciting and interesting for him. So those are some of the things that you really want to pay attention to. And what this means for you is that you can take the guesswork out of your career search. So I talk to a lot of people who have already made some sort of misstep in their career, and they're now just paralyzed because they're scared that they're going to do it again, that they're going to make a wrong choice again. And so following this process is going to eliminate a big chunk of the risk. So Laura is asking for the questions. The questions that you can ask yourself are, after an informational interview, ask yourself, okay, what was exciting about this conversation? What like lit me up and like built your energy up? And then the other question was, what are things that you felt hesitant about? What were things where you're like, I don't know if I want to do that? Like maybe they tell you, yeah, I work 70 hours a week in this role. Maybe that's not what you want. Maybe that's not part of your vision. So just be aware of things that are building you up and things that are kind of like taking your energy down to get a sense of what's going to be a fit and what's not. Okay, so benefit number 2. This one is how you can use informational interviewing to skip the application and resume submittal process. So to explain how this one works, I want to tell you guys a story about someone that I worked with. Her name's Mandy. And Mandy is someone that, like I said, she's a past client. She was working in PR at the time, and she wanted to make a jump into the events world. So there were some overlapping tasks between these two, but it still wasn't a one-for-one. You know, it wasn't PR to PR. She was making a transition. And she was missing some of the particular experience that the events job descriptions were asking for. And so what Mandy did was she found a particular role in events that she wanted at a company that she was really excited about. She went and applied for the role. And what I helped her do was to track down the hiring manager on LinkedIn and send him an email asking him to learn more about the type of work that his team is doing. And so as she's sending these messages, in the meantime, Mandy ends up getting a rejection notice from the recruiting team. They said, hey, we're not going to move forward with you for this events position that you wanted. And she's bummed out, but she's not totally surprised because, again, she's not a perfect fit on paper, right? She wasn't technically a perfect fit. And so after that rejection, she ends up getting a response back from the hiring manager. He emails back and he says, yeah, I'm more than happy to connect with you and have a conversation with you. So those two have a great conversation. And guess what happens? The hiring manager asks Mandy to come interview for the position, even though she had already been rejected for it. So she created an advocate for herself on the inside of the company. And once she did that, submitting her resume didn't really matter anymore, which is pretty cool. It didn't matter that the recruiter had rejected her because Mandy made a connection with the person who has the power, which is the hiring manager. So that's something that I want you guys to take away too, is that we get fixated on recruiters sometimes, I think, because they're the gatekeeper, but they're just the gatekeeper. The recruiters are there to facilitate the process. They're there to present candidates. They're there to, make sure everything runs smoothly and schedule everything with their whole team. But the person who is hiring you is the hiring manager. They're the one who gets to decide if you get a job or not, right? Once you get to that interview process. So if you can go directly to the hiring manager, that's just going to be so much more powerful. So what ended up happening for Mandy, to get back to my story, was that she ended up going through the interview process to the final round. She didn't get that role, But they ended up calling her 4 weeks later, and they said that they had a contract position that they wanted her to take. And so she jumped on it. She did an amazing job, proved herself in that role, and then eventually got converted to a full-time employee. And she's still at this company today and has actually like been promoted since this time. So she's loving life and made that transition to an events role. So the moral of the story here is that people want to hire candidates that they know, like, and trust. And it's human nature to, they want to ensure that they're making a good choice. That these hiring teams want to make a safe choice, not a risky choice. So if you can create a connection with someone on the inside of your dream company, they can become your advocate. And this is going to go so much further than just submitting your resume with 300 other people and then crossing your fingers. So here are some fun stats for you guys. About 85% of people end up landing their job through some sort of connection. That's been me too. I've gotten all of my jobs through a connection point. And from my personal experience at the Fortune 500 tech company that I worked at, over 50% of the people that we hired were referrals. So when I say referral, I mean someone who's already working at the company has recommended you as a candidate. They've recommended you for a position. And so our company at the time was hiring over 7,000 people each year. And so I think what is really powerful to understand about this is that as a recruiting team, we prioritized referrals because they were coming from current employees, and that was meaningful to us, right? What our employees had to say was meaningful. Who they were recommending meant a lot to the recruiting team. And it obviously was a good return on the recruiting team's investment, a good ROI, because we ended up hiring, 50% of the people were referrals. And we had an SLA, so we had what would you call it? It's a service level agreement, but we would look at referrals within 48 hours, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they were prioritized. And so for you as a candidate, what you can take away from that is that if you want your application to be prioritized, and if you want to end up in that 50% hired referrals bucket, potentially, you've got to be out there making those connections. And so it's just even more proof of how meaningful it is to have a connection when you are trying to get an interview somewhere. And then the other thing that I also wanted to share kind of on this topic was that when I was working in recruiting, the teams that I hired for loved to pick out their own candidates from their networks if they could. So when we were going to open up a new role to hire for, the first question that they would like to ask was, who do we know that could do this job? Who do we have in our networks? And then sometimes they would say, okay, let me go ask my team who they know, right? So they would want to see who their direct reports knew that we could potentially hire onto this team too. And so it's, again, like they wanted to pick people that they already knew, that they were already in contact with. Second question would sometimes be, who have we interviewed in the past, who went to final rounds and we would want to bring back for a second shot. And then third thing would be, okay, let's pull resumes and do outbound sourcing, or you might call it headhunting, I guess, where the recruiting team goes and looks for candidates themselves. So really goes to show that having connections carries a lot of weight and can sometimes get you right past that resume stage and into the interview process. Ooh, Esther says, I landed as a referral one time. That's awesome. It's very powerful. Okay, and then benefit number 3. So how you can use informational interviewing to sail through the interview process with ease. So when you do informational interviews, if you do them intentionally and you really listen and you keep track of what you are learning, you'll start to notice patterns. People in a certain line of work will use the same lingo. They'll start mentioning similar challenges about the type of work that they do, or they'll talk about similar key tasks that need to be accomplished in the role. So if you can pay attention and listen to these patterns when you're going through all these informational interviews, these are all of the clues that you need to get through the interview process. Because when you use the same lingo that the team uses, they see you as understanding the role. When you know what the challenges are going to be, you can prepare your answers for the interview for how you're going to overcome those challenges that you know you're going to encounter. And when you know what types of tasks that will need to be completed in this role, you can then choose what stories you tell about your experience to showcase how you have completed similar tasks in your work experience. So I have another story for you guys from my own experience of job transitioning. And this is when I was making the transition from being an analyst into the recruiting world. And the reason that I wanted to move away from being an analyst was because I felt that it was too numbers oriented. And so when I would show up for my informational interviews, I was talking to all of these different recruiters because that's the direction that I wanted to go in. So, side note, you would talk to who you want to, the position you want to get hired as, right? For me, it happened to be a recruiter, but for you guys, I recommend if you want to get into accounting, talk to people in accounting. So I would show up to my informational interviews and they would ask, why are you interested in leaving your current position? And I would share that I have discovered that my role as an analyst is too numbers oriented for me. And they would say, whoa, 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 wait, Jess, recruiting is numbers oriented. If you're not okay with that, I don't know if this is a good fit for you. And I was so confused by this. And so I would ask them for more information. And what I learned is that we were having a total communication disconnect. When I said numbers oriented, I was referring to calculating profits and sales and margins and running around with this big crazy Excel spreadsheet that I didn't know how to read. Like, that's what numbers oriented meant to me. What the recruiters were talking about when they said numbers oriented, they were referring to having particular quotas that they had to hit. So in recruiting, you have to do a certain number of interviews each week. You have to do a certain number of resumes that you have to process. You have to make sure that you're hiring a certain number of people every quarter. So they saw that as numbers oriented, like oriented to your quotas. So we were using the same language, but we were talking about two totally different things. And so you have to be really careful with this. And I'm really thankful that it came up during my informational interviews because there wasn't a job at stake in those conversations. So it was okay for me to mess it up, and it was okay for me to learn where I needed to change my story so that these recruiters and the people I wanted to get hired with could better relate to me. So that was exactly what I did. I went back and I determined a better way that I could present myself and my desire to not be an analyst anymore. And I presented it in a way that put me in alignment with a move into recruiting. And I stopped telling the story my way because it was creating a misalignment. So the point here is that informational interviews will help you gain so much helpful information that you'll need during the interview process. So really, like, pay attention when you do these informational interviews, take notes and notice the patterns, be present, like wake up from the autopilot mode that you've been living in. You know, that's so easy for us to slip into, and especially when you're job searching and it's kind of like the same activities over and over and over again. Like, be present, be grateful for what you're learning. And then just remember that everything that you could need to know to get through your job search and get through an interview can be learned through informational interviewing. So that's the other thing that I'll throw out there too, is sometimes people will say, well, Jess, what am I supposed to ask these people in informational interviews, right? And I think you should be asking them what you want to know. Ask them about the missing information that you don't have yet. Use it as an opportunity to advance yourself, to advance your job search, to advance your interviewing skills, right? And then take all of that information in and integrate it and come back with something that is in alignment with the team that you want to get hired for. So, to recap what I've talked about today, and if you guys could share in the chat with all of us some of the things that you're learning, that would be awesome. I'm really excited to hear what's the most interesting or helpful thing that you've picked up so far from this conversation. But we've talked about how informational interviewing will help you gain clarity before you ever step into a career, how it will help you skip the application process by having connections on the inside, And we've talked about how you can learn all of the clues that you need to be successful in your interviews. And I know that some of you might be thinking, I don't know, Jess, this seems like a lot of work. I have to reach out to a bunch of random people and have a bunch of conversations. And guess what? It totally is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to you on that. It definitely takes time and effort to go through this process. It's not a get your dream job tomorrow kind of thing. But if you look at it this way, you know what else is a lot of work is when you put all of your time and effort into applying to hundreds of roles and then you get rejected and rejected and rejected. Like, what is the benefit that you've received from that? Not much, right? But when you put all of your time and effort into connecting with people, what you get back from it is that people are on your side now. People, you'll have people that are cheering for you, right? You'll have people that are looking out for you. You'll have people that will think of you if they hear of a job that could be a good fit for you. That just happened for one of my clients who's done a ton of informational interviewing. Someone came back and said, "Hey, Dave, I know you're looking for roles in supply chain. Are you interested in this?" So that was really, really cool to have that happen. And so if you make enough connections and have enough people in the right industries and career paths looking out for you, eventually all of that's going to snowball into something really, really good coming your way. So I hope that you'll decide to try it and put in the work and trust that you will be rewarded for it. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys.
I love it, Jeff. So I've got some questions, and first and foremost, thank you so much for that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
talk a lot about informational interviews, and you're right. You got to get those conversations started with the people inside the companies, and it doesn't have to necessarily be decision makers. It could just be someone who does what you do,
That's a great.
um, or or really anybody that works in the company, because all you want to do is get one step closer to that referral, right? You just want to get one step closer, and it could literally be the assistant, right? That is going to lunch with the hiring manager every day, right? You just never know who knows who, and
Totally.
so it's about just getting one step closer. And sometimes it's about volume, like how many people can you have a conversation with inside that company that you want to work with,
Mhm.
and eventually you're going to get so much buzz going around if you're having a lot of conversations that we can get that resume to the right person. So, but for a lot of people that this is new to, like this is like you maybe are having a challenge setting up informational interviews. Jess, what would you recommend? Like how, right? Okay, so we know it's important. We know we need to, but what's a strategy, or how do I get someone's attention? How do I get somebody to give me 15 minutes of their time so I can pick their brain? Because that's something we hear a lot is I want to pick your brain, right?
Yeah.
So any thoughts or recommendations on how to get the attention and to get somebody to actually say yes?
Yeah, totally. So, a couple things. I like to start with hot and warm connections if you can. So, try to think of when I say a hot connection, I mean someone who is already, they already know you, they're already invested in your success. If you happen to have anyone in your immediate world that is kind of, along this career path, I would definitely start with them first. And you can ask them, "Hey, who else can you introduce me to?" That is going to like way bump up your response rate, right? Because these people are invested in you. Again, they know, like, and trust you already. So I like to start with that. I like to tell job seekers to talk about what you're doing. And I know it's tough with COVID because we're all at home, but like in normal life, and you can still do this, I guess people are on Zoom calls and stuff every day, but talk about what you're up to. If you're trying to do informational interviews with account executives, when people are like, "Hey, Jess, hi, how are you? What have you been up to lately?" Just like personal conversation, right? It doesn't have to be in a business capacity. You can say, "I'm really curious about what it's like to work in sales. I'm actually trying to talk to account executives. Like, do you know anyone who does that type of work?" That's how I found my business coach, actually. It was just by talking to my friends about what I'm up to, sharing that information. And then people are like, "I know someone who does that." And they can introduce you to people. So that's another way. Those are kind of the warm connections. And then for cold connections, so reaching out to people who you don't know, maybe you found them on LinkedIn, right? And they look awesome. Someone who's not invested in you yet. For cold connections, I try to make the reach outs really personal. So kind of the format that I use, I start with a personal connection point. So that could be anything on their profile that's interesting to you. If you went to the same school or anything like that is really great. Something that stood out. You could congratulate them on something if they posted like an achievement or maybe they got promoted. So that's another way. I have even had people send me messages, and this sounds so simple, but about the weather. So I'm from Minnesota, it's freezing, and had moved to California, and people were like, "Hey Jess, how do you feel being out of the frozen tundra?" Right? And it's one of those things where it made me laugh a little bit, and it just made them feel more personal instead of was so excited to come across your profile on LinkedIn. Right? So I was like, "Oh, who is this person?" They looked at my profile, right? So start with a personal connection, lead with that. Second paragraph, I say why I want to talk to them and make it about them. So many people are, I'm trying to do this, I want that job. I don't talk about wanting a job at all, right? It's like, I want to learn about you. I want to hear your story. I want to hear about your experience, is in the second paragraph. And then the third line that I'll put at the bottom is, I'm sure you're busy. So acknowledge that they have a busy schedule, right? We're all busy. If you even have just 15 minutes to chat, I would really, really appreciate it. And I find that that like 15-minute disclaimer works well because on the receiving end, this person is saying, oh, okay, they don't want too much of my time. It's a small investment that I could make. But what I find is that once you get people on the phone and you have this good conversation and they have this awesome opportunity to talk about themselves, right? Everyone loves talking about themselves. The conversations go a lot longer than 15 minutes. Like I had one of my clients came back and said, this woman talked to me for an hour and a half. So people are willing to share. It's kind of just that first barrier of getting them on the phone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say when you get them for that 15 minutes, when your 15 minutes is up, make sure that you acknowledge the fact that that 15 minutes is up and, give them the opportunity to reschedule or to get some more time if the conversation really starts to go, because if you just ignore it, if you get to that 15-minute mark and you ignore it and you just blow past, you're just totally disrespecting their time and you're just like stomping all over their time. So make sure you acknowledge it, give them the opportunity to, schedule some more time with you. And a lot of times they'll be okay to keep going, as Jess was saying. A lot of times they'll just, no, we're fine, keep going. They'll keep going. But don't make the mistake of like hitting that 15-minute mark and then just keep going and just totally ignore it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
You want to be respectful always.
Yeah, people do that too much to me all the time. And I'm like, dude, we said 15 minutes. Like, I'm not here for an hour. Come on. Anyway, so, okay, you got questions for her. What are some questions? You can unmute your mic. And Jess, you want to stop the share real quick? We'll just bring back the Brady Bunch in here. And then, and there we go. Hey, all these beautiful faces. Love all that. Look at these people in here. All right. So now unmute your mic if you got a question or put it in the chat and we'll call on you. Don't be shy because I'll pick on people. You know how I'll do.
So Michael has a question. I'm curious to hear what people have to say about this. Would you include a link to Calendly or similar to schedule a meeting, or is that too presumptive? For me, I'll answer for me personally. I don't want a calendar link on the first message. I feel like that is presumptive, but I'm curious to hear what other people have to say.
I put it as part of my signature for everything. So all my emails have it so they can do it. It just makes it easier. And it's also a web link inside my LinkedIn as one of the websites that you put up there.
That's good. As if it's in a signature, then it's not like here to schedule a call, but it's still that's available to me. I like that.
We're getting a little background in here. Who we got?
Oh.
So you have to be a leader that's continued.
Might have a couple of mics anyway.
No, it's probably me because I have an HMG conference going on too.
Oh, okay. I was like, all right. No, but yeah, I would say when it comes to the Calendly link, like, and I would even say I agree right off the very bat, it may be a little bit, I don't think people are going to look at it negatively, but Yeah, I could definitely see the other perception. I can see both sides totally. I can see where maybe you throw, like we teach the strategy of throwing out that personalized message, whether that message is a video or that message is audio or that message is text. You throw out a personalized message, maybe even let them respond, right? And then throw out your calendar. That might work as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you test it out, guys. I would test out that formula and see, okay, am I getting more responses? Am I getting more bites by letting them respond first, then throwing out my calendar, or just doing it right off the bat? Which way is getting the higher ROI? But I do think, and actually, no, I don't think, I know you need to use Calendly. So how many in this room have Calendly and you're using it? All right, I got a lot of hands going up. Yeah, you have to. If you're not using Calendly, go right now. Like, just get out of this meeting right now. Just run. Go to calendly.com. Just get out of here and go get you a free account, like right this second, because you need it right now.
I've already set it up for the new business too.
Yeah, yeah. And then just play with approaches. Figure out which approach you like better, whether it's right off the bat or after. And that comes through trial and error. It comes through just doing it, a lot of activity, and then you get to look at your numbers and go, you know what? It's better to do it this way.
Hey, Trevor, Laura's got a question.
Yeah, Laura, come on in.
I'm seeing me. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't understand it. I'm an academic, and so I'm a thinking, and so I need a tutorial. That said, I like it actually because so I don't have to go back to my Google Calendar. It automatically tells me exactly, and it coincides with what I understand with my attempt to understand Calendly to that extent, that there's a certain parameter with which the individual to their session 15 minutes prior to, so that I won't conflict with theirs. Likewise, if I have an hour Zoom, I didn't know this was going to go for 3 hours. Rock on, and so just this is that. I need to put a check in the mail. It tells me what their allowance is for their time, and also what my allowance is. I have made a schedule. I've made an appointment for me, whatever I'm committed to. So in that regard, I need a tutorial because I can't get it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to tell you right now, they have amazing, like Calendly is really, really good at their video tutorials. If you just go online, they have a ton of video tutorials that'll show you exactly what to do, because every calendar is a little different, whether you're using, Outlook or you use Gmail or whatever calendar you use, and maybe what is it, the iPhone? I'm not an iPhone guy. What is it? Apple Calendar or something? I don't know.
I'm Google.
Yeah, but whatever calendar you use, it's going to walk you through it. And there's video tutorials. So again, get that tool, use that tool. It's a great tool to do, to use for your informational interviews.
Yeah. Laura, I'll tell you, I started using it and I hated it because I couldn't figure it out. And then I spent a little time just digging in and looking up some of those things. It's so much easier. It's definitely worth the investment of your time to check it out.
Okay, I'll do it.
Hey, Laura, Phil Austin here. Listen, I went through all the tutorials and I use a remote server to work with my Outlook. So it's balanced across several things to go in and out. And I couldn't find it on the videos and tutorials. So I actually went to their customer service and they hooked me up with a gentleman named Blake M. His last initial is M.
Blake?
He is fantastic. He is absolutely fantastic. He sent me back screenshots, but video screenshots of him selecting and what to do. So it was really, I walked through it, got it just like that.
We talk offline so this doesn't compromise the chat.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yes.
See that, guys? That's the spirit of this network. It's helping other people, right? Help one person every day. Philip, thank you for that. Yeah, and I'll tell you, Calendly frustrated me in the beginning because they really didn't have customer service. It was, when I first started using them, this was years ago when I was using them. It was you had to email them your tech problems. Has anybody ever had to like go back and forth through emails to get a tech problem solved? That is the worst. Oh my God.
Takes forever.
Oh,
And,
I was so mad. I was like,
that's
wanting
why
to
they
like
have
smash
chats.
my keyboard. Like,
And even more when you're a technical person.
yeah. But now they have better customer service. I mean, they're growing exponentially as a company. And there are other ones you can use. I just find that Calendly is probably the most well-known and most trusted. Are you guys using any other calendar tools? Anybody here want to shout out another calendar tool that maybe you're using?
I use Acuity, but I feel like it's kind of complicated.
Really?
Yeah. Hasn't been the best, so.
I'll tell you, when I first found Calendly, it was like, it literally was a godsend. I'm not even gonna, I'm literally. So I was at my entrepreneurs small group at church. Okay, it was an entrepreneur small group at church. And we're talking, and then this lady says, yeah, I got this Calendly thing, and and I was like, oh, it was like it fell from the sky, and it had rays coming from it, and it was like, oh, it was literally like getting a personal assistant. It like saved me so much time. It was the best thing ever and solved all my problems. And so I love it, swear by it, and you all need to have it, and it's free. Jeff, what's good, man? I see you raising your hand.
Yeah, I have a question for Jess, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so thank you, Jess, first of all, for the presentation today. I appreciate the information. So any tips on, let's say you make the connection with someone, you get the meeting, and I've had success in those examples when they're very active on LinkedIn, so I can engage in their posts and kind of keep up with them that way. But if they're not a very active user on LinkedIn, any tips or suggestions on how you continue connecting with them beyond that meeting so you stay relevant, top of mind, that type of thing with those individuals that are not heavily on LinkedIn?
Great question.
After the conversation, it's perfect. So I like to update people with what you're working on, and you're having this conversation to learn something, right? Like things are happening in this conversation. It's not just random. So they kind of know what you're up to after you get off the phone with them. And I think a lot of people have a block around this. They're like, oh, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to like message them again and like take up time and space, right? But I think it's actually so like if I was the person who you informational interviewed, right, I kind of have an investment in you now a little bit, right? I'm curious to know what the outcome is going to be. I'm curious to know what you're up to. So I would just send updates to people.
Okay.
Like every other month, like, hey, here's what I've been working on. Like, I learned this other cool thing. Hope you're doing great. I think like the holidays are a great time to follow up with people and just check in. And people are like, wow, oh my God, Jeff is thinking of me. Like, it's nice, you know? So I would say updates work well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The other thing I use besides the LinkedIn activity is taking anything away that I learned from them in that interaction, that especially if they said they're being challenged with it. If there's anything useful that I can use in response to that, I try to volunteer that and pass that along too, maybe a few weeks later, just to kind of keep that link going as well. So I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, that's great, Jeff. And I think another one kind of similar to what you just said is if you ask them for some sort of advice or like, what should I do? Or if they're like, you need to go read this book or try out this thing. If you go try it, then you can circle back and say, hey, I read the book that you recommended. I tried the website. I went and got Calendly, right? What do you think, Trevor? And people will love that. They'll be excited about it. So that's another thing is like, take the advice that you're given and then tell them how it went for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Trevor.
Go for it. Michael, go ahead.
No, that's right. Yeah, Jeff, I was going to tell Jeff, one of the things I've had, and very much along what Jess just said, is that sometimes when I'm talking with a recruiter or if I'm in that process or trying to connect with somebody and there's something in common that we have in common, and I, a couple of weeks later or whatever, find an article or something that I'm writing a post on LinkedIn, I will include them in the comments by including them into that subject. And so what I have found is I've got 2 or 3 recruiters now in companies where jobs that I was interested in that went to an internal candidate are still communicating with me about future opportunities because we keep connecting on things that are similar. And it's very unassuming and very, no pressure. It just keeps the dialogue going. And that's really a good way to do it too, because then you have some common ground that you can keep, a conversation running with.
Great advice. Thank you.
I think that's awesome, Michael. And it helps, especially for recruiters. Like, that's huge that you can stay top of mind for them. And I think, thinking of recruiters as someone who can help you is a great shift instead of like the evil gatekeeper again, because when I worked in recruiting, it was like I had candidates that I really liked. And I'm assuming you're probably on that list for these recruiters now, that whenever we had positions come up that were potentially a fit for these particular candidates that I really enjoyed, I would say, "Ooh, can we get Paul in here? What about Paul? What about Paul? Is this a fit for Paul?" So they will, again, like, be your advocate when you create that genuine connection. So I love that, Michael. That's awesome.
Jess will probably agree with this, and Trevor says this just about every week on the radio show, guys. If you're in a job search, you want to be on the radar of recruiters. So one way that you get our attention, I'm one of those crazy looking people. Now, Jess, you work just fine. But if you guys are part of the largest job seeker network in the United States, actually, you could cut us in half. And we are substantially the largest job seeker network in the United States. Now, ask those recruiters how you can help them. A recruiter generally has more than just one or two jobs that they're looking to fill. Connect them with components of the Career Search Network. Connect them with the radio shows, the things that we have. Let them know what you're a part of. Now, if Jess remembers that you went out of your way to try to help her, guess what? You're on her radar. I see her shaking her head and smiling there. And did I hit it on the nail, Jess?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Foster. I mean, look, like, I might not be the best fit, but I got a big old group. I have a big old network out here that I could, you need to come out and come get connected with my network, because I'm sure you could find somebody there, right? And so that's a great point, Foster. Tell them what you're a part of. Tell them the community you're a part of, and they come. Guys, let me tell you something right now. Recruiters come to the Who You Know show and what we're doing. They love what we're doing, right? They come. That's your in. If you want to pull one in and say, "Hey, listen, I'm part of this. I'm part of the Who You Know community. Let me introduce you to Foster Williams. Let me introduce you." They will come. I promise you.
They will.
They will. They will. That's like your value add. Like, that could be a great value add. They'll come.
What was that you said, Trevor? Give to get, I think, about 2 months ago on the radio.
Yeah, give first. I'm curious. Okay, so we're talking about informational interviews, and I did a presentation last week, I think it was, on informational interviews. And I'm curious, how many of you were part of that job resource management series? I got a few hands going up. Okay, cool. So how many of you started writing your book? Do I have any? Did anybody start their book yet? Laura, I see your hand going up. All right, so Jess, tell me real quick where you're from. Again, where are you from?
Me?
Minnesota.
Yeah. You're Minnesota. You're from Minnesota. So here's a strategy, and I'm gonna pick on Laura here in a second. Here's a strategy. I want you to go share it to Minnesota so they can pick up this strategy, okay?
Okay.
So everybody knows they need to do informational interviews. The hard part is getting the attention of that person. That can be the tough person, tough task, especially if it's cold. Or if it's cold, it can be a little bit challenging to get somebody to give you that 15, 20 minutes of their time. So the strategy that I came out with and put out in the Job Resource Management series was to write a book, okay? You need to become an author. Each one of you in this room need to become an author. Now, whether your book actually hits the shelf or not, I don't know. That's between you and the publishers. But look, you need to be an author, okay? Just saying. And you need to reach out to people from these companies that you want to work for. And you need to tell them that part of your job search, that you need to be upfront that you're in job search. You need to say you're writing a book about your job search, okay? Your job search journey. And you are interviewing companies to get to know them better, to figure out if you want to work for them or not, okay? And you would like to highlight this person in your book, right? You're saying, I want to feature you and your experience because you do what I do. You're a project manager, I'm a project manager. I want to feature you and your experience in my book. Will you take 15 minutes out of your day so I can interview you, right? You think you're going to get a response? Yeah, you're going to get a response.
Hey,
right?
Jess, I have a question. Do you know Catherine Byers-Breet, that's from the Minnesota area?
I don't think so. Maybe if
The
I say-
reason that I asked that, she and I have been friends forever. She is the Trevor Houston of, well, she's probably more like Mark Elder.
I think she's
of,
in.
of, Min-
Jess, you're
of
in California
Minneapolis.
now, though, right? Are you in California now?
So I'm from
Yeah,
Minnesota.
Jess is in California, but being from with my, you know how I am with developing relationships. You guys have a commonality. It's Minnesota. And she is, Minnesota has probably the second largest network, second to Dallas Fort Worth. I would strongly suggest, because of what you do, I would strongly suggest that you connect with Catherine Byers-Breet. In fact, I'll do an introduction after we get through here.
Myers-Briggs.
Thank you for thinking of me. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's how we do this.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Foster.
So Laura, you said you started your book. You want to come in real quick? Did you start your book?
Well, I'm not so much, it's not no disrespect in any way. I'm not so much interested in how other people, and this is no disrespect. I already wrote a book. I wrote a dissertation on how at-home dads, the subjective experiences of at-home dads. So I wrote a book. I want to know people's stories. And so my interest is in women and how they cope with imposter syndrome. And so that said, I want to know their stories. And so I've done a book, but it was academic. I want to get real. Just academic, real. So yeah, I met with the editor last week, and she's going to get me started on it. And I have no clue what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. Pay some money. I'd rather have someone write it. I'm tired of writing. I spent 12 years in college. Who does that? Sitting behind a desk, listening to people talk, write some papers. I'm done writing. Okay, who? I want to hear these women, ladies, men. Who gets your word up? I can't say. Who hears you? Why? The why. Who hears you? That's my thing, is the why. I'm looking at two screens here. I beg your pardon. The why. Who hears you? And that's what I want to do. And yeah, I love men. And so now I'm on women. That didn't sound right. So that said, that's my thing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
good luck on the book. Hopefully we'll see it on we'll see it on the shelf soon. But guys, each and every one of you need to get out there and start writing your book, right? You need to write your book and start having those informational interviews. Watch, I promise. Anybody here that takes me up on that strategy, watch how many you start scheduling. You will, because people will be excited about it, because they'll actually say, oh, wow, I'm going to get featured in a book, right? And I remember the first time I got featured in a book, and it was very exciting. That was a cool feeling. Anybody here been featured in a book before? Anybody? It's an exciting feeling. It's exciting, right? You're like, oh, wow, someone's going to feature me in their book.
What's more is if I can feature others in a book, to highlight them.
Yeah, highlight them and ask them a bunch of questions. And then after, the part of the strategy is you record it on Zoom like this, because everybody's doing Zoom meetings, right? So part of the strategy is you record on Zoom just like this. And you say, hey, I'm writing the book. I appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you so much. With your permission, I want to make sure to get your permission, but I'd love to record this meeting because I'm taking notes, but I'm also going to transcribe it. It makes things a little bit easier. Is that okay with you if I go ahead and, record the meeting? They're going to give you yes, unless they're a little bit skittish, but most of the time they're going to say yes. And they say, I'm also marketing my book. All right, I'm going to bring it to market and I'm going to be promoting it very, very heavily. So During that promotion process, I usually take these interviews that I'm having with different companies and different people. I take that interview and I chop it up into micro content. Would you be okay for me to use our interview as a marketing strategy to market the book? Would you be okay with that? If they say yes, then you're good to go. And you take that interview with them, that informational interview, and you chop it up into micro content that is now your marketing strategy. And you're now not only featuring them in your book, but you're marketing them and tagging them and the company and all that stuff too. And they're like, oh my gosh, wow, this person is just pouring themselves into me. And those are also follow-up touch points. Each time you post a new piece of content, that's a follow-up touch point.
And recruiters will see that too. If you're like posting that content on your LinkedIn, right? If you want to get into product development and you're interviewing all these product development managers, right? They're like, oh, wow, they are going above and beyond. They care, right? It's a nice feature for yourself.
And you tag the company, right? So if you're going to work for Coca-Cola and let's say you're a project manager at Coke, you want to work at Coca-Cola and you go interview a project manager who does what you do, and then you're tagging the company and you tag the employee and you tag maybe a recruiter in there who you'd like to get an introduction to. And then you even ask them, hey, would you introduce me to that person? You ask for the referrals. But guys, this is a strategy that I promise you, if you take me up on it, you all need to become authors. The reason why I know this works, let me tell you why this works, because I stay extremely busy, okay? I'm very, very busy. I got my hands in a lot of different things, and you guys know, I'm busy with y'all. That's what I'm busy with. I'm busy with you.
Absolutely.
And you know how busy we are, right? But I have a lot of people reach out to me all the time that want to pick my brain, and they don't get that opportunity, right? But I've had a couple people reach out and they're like, hey, I want to feature you. I want to feature you. And I'm like, every time, bing. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Job seekers should do the same thing. You should do that. You should be featuring everybody. You should be just highlighting and featuring and getting people excited to talk to you, right? They need to be excited to talk to you.
What?
Hey, Trevor.
Microphone's
Where's
on.
this coming from? Where somebody's talking to me? Who is that?
It was me, I guess.
Laura's the problem. I haven't been hearing her while you're talking, so that's a problem on her end, I think.
Say that again. I heard you, but then I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I'm having a network issue. It turns out Laura is talking, but you're not hearing her.
Oh, it was cutting in and out a little bit.
Yep, sorry.
That's okay. Did you have a question maybe for Jess or anything? Did you have another question?
Having internet issues, can't talk.
That's all right. That's all right. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat and I could read it out loud, or somebody has a question they want to unmute their mic, come on in.
Hold on.
All right. Well, going once, going twice.
I have one final question for Jess.
All right.
It's Lori from Chicago. And you mentioned going to the hiring manager to do informational networking. Would that be a hiring manager in a different job than the job you're applying for? No. I'm reading your lips.
Oh, yeah, you're muted still. There you go.
I'm muted. No, I would connect with people on the teams that you want to get hired for. So it's kind of like the story that I told about Mandy. She reached out to the actual person who was in charge of the job that she wanted, right? And then once he connected with her and bonded with her and they had that great conversation, he was like, what are you interested in? You know, it'll flip back to you. What are you interested in? Well, I'm actually interested in events. It's like, well, I have this role, come interview for it, you know? So I would focus on people that you want to be hired by and how you can kind of do that. Sometimes in the job description, it'll say this position is reporting to senior manager of events. So then I would take senior manager of events or whatever they call it, put that in the search bar with the company name, and you can find those people. And then if they don't always list it, and then it's a little bit tougher, but you can kind of guess it for where they are. So yeah, but I would focus on the people that you want to get hired by.
Yeah, so because I've heard don't talk to the hiring manager. Don't try to talk to the director of that position because you're imposing on their time. They don't want to talk to you. And I know you're not supposed to talk to the recruiting manager, but I've found more, or the HR manager, I've found more success in talking to the HR manager, director, and getting them to warm up to me than the actual hiring manager. I don't know why. Maybe it's my nonprofit world that's squirrely. We don't have recruiters. Nobody.
Sorry, let it flow.
Let it flow, Foster. Okay.
Let it flow. Whoever you're building that relationship with, that's who you want to go with. That's an open door.
Okay. Thanks.
I feel like we tell ourselves a lot of stories about like, oh, they don't want to hear from me. I'm taking up their time. Exactly like you said. But what I say is to think about, you don't get to decide what they are capable of. You don't get to decide what they want to do. You don't get to decide who they want to talk to. They get to decide if they want to talk to you or not, right?
Okay. All right. So, I try to talk to everybody and anybody that's walking this planet Earth. And so I'm out there. I'm like hustling, like people on the street, you got it. So I'll try to talk to everybody.
Laurie, just don't tell them you're a Chicago Bears fan. You'll be all right.
I had to give that up after we sorely lost.
Hey,
Laurie.
Sorry, Mark Elder.
I'm a Steelers fan now.
Yeah, now there you go. There you go.
Mark, you can't switch fences. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, don't let him do that, Laurie.
Hey, I'm a Steelers fan. Mark can join the team anytime.
Mark is he's a fence swinger.
I'm going to
I'll
this
tell
one.
you what.
Trevor's been working on him, and he tried to even act like he was a Cowboy fan about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Ask him where his money goes, where does his money go?
But the Packers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry, Patty.
Look at Jim Young. Look at what Jim Young just did.
Just for you, Mark.
All right, guys. I hate to do this, but we're about 15 minutes over, and we have our Who You Know Summit folks with us. Okay, so they've been with us since 1 o'clock. Okay, they've been with us since 1 o'clock. Yeah. Yes. So you know how we do this. We have our summit, and then I combine Coach's Corner. We put the two rooms together. So, guys, I would like for you, before we hop off, a couple of things, 2 things. Put your LinkedIn URLs in the chat, okay? And go ahead and connect with each other. I should have done that in the beginning. I forgot. Put your LinkedIn URLs in the chat and make sure you save that chat so you can connect with each other. I did put Jess's LinkedIn in there as well. And Jess, you also mentioned you have something that you wanted to do as a giveaway or something. Is that right?
Yeah, if that's okay with you guys. I have it's a PDF of 50 questions that you can ask in informational interviews. I just put it in the chat.
You can, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, cool.
So it's like good informational interview questions.
Yeah, it's a place to get started. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is like, oh, okay, I have the call, but now what? So it's a lot of good questions to think about for people. And then, like I said before, just ask yourself, what do I want to know? What do I genuinely want to know? So maybe you pick a couple from the list and then pick a couple of your own, but it's a good starting point for people.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that, guys. Take that list, put it to work, write your book, start featuring folks, and start asking them questions. And one door will open to another door, which opens to another door, which opens to another door.
Right.
Which opens to that dream job. That's what happens every time. All right. You guys feel like you're on a journey right now? You guys feel like you're on some kind of weird, like, journey?
Another planet.
Well, and so for all the new summit attendees that were here from 1 to 3, you existing Who You Knowers, be sure to connect with everybody here in the room.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new Who You Know participants.
Welcome to the family. We appreciate you guys. Jess, thank you so much for coming and being with us and taking your time out of your busy day.
You guys for having me. It's been so much fun. I love
You
this.
guys out in San Francisco are real busy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's the show. It's all about who you know.
Who you know.
Bye.
See you Wednesday.
Trevor.
Yeah, wait, what?
When you get a chance to give me a shout, I wanted to find out how everything went with
Yes. With
Jonathan Farr
yeah,
and then the Greg.
yes.
If you've been able to, yeah.
Jonathan Farr, I did get a hold of him, and
Okay.
I did it. I
And
did
he
it with
did.
a bomb video.
Oh, awesome.
Because I've been introduced to this guy. This will now be the third time I've been introduced to him. Yep.
Excuse me.
So guys, this is a good story for y'all that are staying on. I've been introduced to this guy. There's a guy that I've been trying to connect with, and I've been introduced to him 3 times now. Okay, like introduced 3 times. Even in person, I was introduced. Still couldn't get on this guy's calendar. All right.
I talked to him Sunday about it.
Yeah. I put out a video to him and I said, hey, look, here's the deal. Joel Scribner has introduced me. Jonathan Trevino has introduced me. I've met you in person. And John Ballard now has introduced me. Here's a link to my calendar. We need to talk. Like pretty much like, come on, man.
Put him on calendar.
Yeah. And he did. He was
Awesome.
like, oh, yeah. I even have his phone number. I have texted the guy before. Like I have texted him, but just never was able to get on his calendar. Anyway, he's a busy guy. He's got.
I know.
So it takes persistence sometimes to get. So thank you for being.
You're welcome.
See, it takes sometimes 3rd time's a charm.
Well, yeah, he has to deal with people like me.
Yeah. He's like, oh man,
That's
John did it.
Daryl Polston, good to see you, sir. And you'll have to tell me what the name of that ship is that's behind you. I'm kind of in the ships kind of thing.
All right, guys. Thanks, guys. John, yes, thank you. Appreciate you.
Not a problem. I just wanted to see how it went with you. The next stage will be getting with the pastor.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is
Pastor Greg.
Yep.
Bye, Holly.
Is Pastor Greg the one with the he's high and tight right here?
Yeah, I think
high and tight.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Trying to
I think so
back on
too.
it.
Wears like the skinny jeans and he's high and tight.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I know who he is. I've never actually in person met him or had a conversation.
Got you.
Yep. But yeah, he seems like a guy I need to talk with, so I'll reach out to him too. See if we need to get that conversation going.
Well, I was getting you through Jonathan. Jonathan should be able to get you because that's his boss.
Got you. So see you guys how this works? You gotta find out who the decision maker is. You gotta figure out who the decision and get the internal referral.
Dulce Ferreira, good to see you.
Yeah, hey, Foster.
Uh-huh.
That is the Picton Castle.
Really?
And it leaves on its worldwide sail around the world cruise on April of 2021.
Yeah, I started to say it hadn't sunk. It's still going.
And it returns to Nova Scotia in 2022.
Oh, wow.
Is that a schooner?
If you choose, it's a bark.
Oh, okay.
It's a bark, and if you choose to pay for that privilege, then you get to sail the ship. You're part of ship's crew for the year.
Oh, that pay package is probably pretty steep.
It's not bad. It's $45,000 for the year.
Oh wow! Shoot, man, come on, let's get on that thing.
Well, yeah.
I'm trying to find out how to do a GoFundMe page so I can just go and
no doubt.
And there would be my book.
There you go. I like that. I like that.
The cruise goes from Nova Scotia to the Caribbean through the Panama Canal, Galapagos Islands, Pitcairn, Tahiti, Darwin, Australia, Cape Town, back up through the Caribbean, back to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, those guys got some interesting waters around Pitcairn.
Well, you know what's famous about Pitcairn Island, right?
Probably not. What's
that is where the crew for the Bounty went after the mutiny.
Oh wow! I know they got some turbulent waters down there, so they've got a wild story of a big whirlpool they got down there.
Mm-hmm. So that's their world cruise. So that's a year's worth of sailing right there.
That's pretty cool.
Man.
That's old school. That's old school
Be waterlogged
sailing.
off that thing.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm in on that. Like, I want the big cruise ship with the slides and the and the ice skating rink at the bottom and all.
Yeah,
I don't
you
want
want
the big
that
one.
thing that swamps the Titanic. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
want
might
the
not have internet
casino.
on that ship.
Yeah, I'm not on this one right here because that one behind you, Daryl, that's got the seasickness in me. I don't want that.
No seasickness for this one. I've already been there, done that.
Yeah, you've been part of that probably, haven't you?
I sailed most of the world with the exception of a piece from the East Coast of the United States.
Wow.
Oh, we're gonna talk, Daryl. And we
Persian
appreciate you. I know you just joined us here recently on the show, and we appreciate you and your being there with us on the show.
You're welcome.
I couldn't think of the word I wanted to say.
And by the way, this week is Go Navy.
It is Go Navy this week.
It is Go Navy week.
Yeah.
Oh, go Army.
Look. It's a good thing we don't have Charles Mitchell on here, Jim. You and Charles Mitchell get along just fine.
It's Go Navy.
You all in this group, y'all need to set up your own small group. I'm telling you, y'all are just.
Yeah, we need to settle
that'd be a
down.
good one. That'd be a good one. I like that. All right, guys. Hey, I would stay to be the last man standing, but I can't do it. I appreciate you. Gotta go.
Good evening. Buster, thank you for the email.
Oh, absolutely. And Tina, give me a call. I sent you a message.
Peace.